Well, hello everybody, welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. My friends, former President of the United States, Barack Obama, recently did a speech at Stanford University about how to protect democracy in the age of disinformation, misinformation. Of course, I'm paraphrasing the title of the speech, but that description that I just gave captures its core essence. And this speech, my friends, not to poison the well, was nothing more than a elongated string of non sequiturs, conceptual confusions, and rhetorical platitudes meant to inspire the beliefs of a particular set of people and to essentially, almost in a sense, gaslight another set of people who hold different beliefs from their belief systems. What do I mean? Well, my friends, the entire premise of Obama's speech had to do with the relationship between social media and society, or how he put it, social media and democracy. So when you have that kind of framing, you already say a few things. You say a few things implicitly. When you put social media in relationship to democracy, you say a few things. You say, A, that democracy is the dominant political mode of the country. Otherwise, if it was not, this would be a theoretical exercise that would have no practical relevance to anybody. And obviously, it's not simply a theoretical exercise because Barack Obama in this speech gave us a number of policy prescriptions that he thought could forward his thesis. We shall get to those in a moment. So number one, he believes democracy is the dominant political mode of the country. Number two, he believes democracy as a political system inherently has some necessity to interface with social media companies, even though they're not necessarily political systems. And number three, he believes that democracy is the most important value we should weigh as it relates to the relationship between social media and it, I guess. So he's already stating a few things by framing the conversation this way. My friends, you need not wait for someone to come out and tell you what they believe, if by reason you can discern through their words, through the sentiments, exactly what they may believe. And like a good rhetorician, Barack Obama lays out the conceptual groundwork for this speech by cooking it in these terms and therefore making it advantageous for him. Because someone who truly believes in first principles, someone who's truly trying to understand this political stuff for real, is not going to go ahead and simply state something and assert something and then proceed as if those assertions have been proved. No. If you're trying to do this thing for real, then you're going to actually get down, explain your first principles, justify them, and then proceed. Whenever I invoke natural law in my videos, my friends, I don't simply say, well, natural law is this, and it's this, therefore we move on. No, I say this is what natural law says, here's why it makes sense, I justify it, and then I apply it to other things. But the rhetorician and Barack Obama didn't do that. And so Barack Obama makes a lot of claims in this speech, and I would be here forever if I tried to attack every single individual claim he made. You know, Albert J. Knox said that the student of politics is not worried about the secondary speculations of the news. They're not worried about price fixing. They're not worried about the minimum wage. They're not worried about what Congress is doing on a particular day in Capitol Hill. The student of politics is worried about the foundations of politics that are reflected in many different issues. Ergo, I'm also concerned about the foundations of Barack Obama's argument and his speech. And he explained those foundations, and I shall explain those foundations to you, and then proceed along with my critique. But before I do that, allow me to say some of the things that he said. He said that he essentially bemoaned the fact that now that in a previous age, people used to watch the three big networks, NBC, ABC, CBS. And he said, yes, there were problems with these three dispensaries of information being a part of the conversation. Primarily, the problems were, these are his words, that they didn't allow black people to have a voice. It wasn't that having three networks that everyone got their news from allowed propaganda to be efficient. It wasn't that it allowed these three institutions to control the truth and thus limited the ability for people to actually understand what's going on. None of those epistemic concerns came into Barack Obama's mind in his speech. He said, well, people of color were kept out of the conversation. Okay, well, I'm sorry, but just because that's a problem for sure. But what's also a problem is when these organizations have the ability to control the narrative and control our relationship with truth. That's the bigger problem. But Barack Obama said, justified it on the basis of saying, well, we had shared knowledge when these organizations were here now, and he basically blamed the internet for making these news stations, making these networks to compete. He even said that social media has accelerated the decline of newspapers and trusted outlets. Again, as if this is a bad thing. As if the decentralization of information is a bad thing. And he attacks the decentralization of information by blanketly stating it has given rise to kooks. I shall give you one example here.
All we see is a constant feed of content where useful, factual information and happy diversions and cat videos flow alongside lies, conspiracy theories, junk science, quackery, white supremacist, racist tracts, misogynist screeds. And over time, we lose our capacity to distinguish between fact, opinion, and wholesale fiction.
Okay, once again, there's a lot of foundations to this, and I can't get bogged down in the minutia, but he also said in the same strain, just like Barack Obama is concerned about decentralization in media, Barack Obama is also concerned about decentralization in currency. And he said that now cryptocurrency, this is essentially what he meant, is making it harder for us to protect consumers because it cannot be regulated. Again, this is someone who is more concerned about the government being able to control something as opposed to being concerned with the necessity or investigating the necessity of the government having to control that something. He doesn't investigate that. He assumes things and then proceeds with assumptions. And there's nothing more dangerous to anything. There's nothing more dangerous to the existence of a free society and of individual rights than an uncritical mind that does not check its premises. Here are the foundations that Barack Obama argued that social media companies should constitute their interaction with their content upon. He said to moderate the internet, the following principles need to be used. Principle 1, whether it strengthens or weakens the prospects for a healthy and inclusive democracy. Principle 2, whether it encourages robust debate and respect for our differences. Principle 3, whether it enforces rule of law and self-governance. And Principle 4, whether it helps us make collective decisions based on the best available information, and whether it recognizes the rights and freedoms and dignity of all of our citizens. Barack Obama argues that those 4 principles should be what we base how social media and the internet is governed in broad terms. Those principles. Now, some of these things here sound fine, but the problem is, before I even get into any one of these principles, if you don't explain the premises of your principles, again, they are impotent. He is saying these things, not even recognizing, this is part of the flaw of Barack Obama, he has an old mind, not even recognizing that different people understand these words differently, and therefore it is the burden upon the advocate, upon the claimant, to A, make his arguments as clear as possible, and to do that, he must define his terms. But Barack Obama, being the rhetorician, simply taps into everyone's preconception of what these things mean, and a certain group of people are going to be able to understand what these things might mean in accordance to what Barack Obama wants them to mean, but will they truly understand what they mean? There's no guarantee because he doesn't define his terms. And this is the sign of someone who doesn't care about truth and who instead cares about an agenda. But there are some of these first principles here that are nothing more than harrowing admissions of Barack Obama's paternalistic mindset. For example, he says one of the principles, principle 4, is that we should govern content on the basis that if it helps us make collective decisions based on the best available information. First of all, there's no such thing as a collective decision. In my intro, I mentioned that there was a conceptual confusion that he put in his speech. This is one of the many conceptual confusions. Think about this. Think about you have an institution, a building, a skyscraper, and that building is managed in segments. There are people on the upper floor, lower floor, all the floors, and each office manages different parts of the building. How in the world could everyone in that skyscraper make a collective decision in actuality? In actuality, what happens is individuals calculate the circumstances of different parts of those floors, and they bring together, and they do so with a wide variety of mechanisms and a wide variety of value criteria. For example, it could be, okay, what does this floor mean? How can I improve this floor? Okay, and what basis is that built upon? Okay, how can I improve the productivity of the workers on this floor? It's all based on sometimes circumstantial and sometimes general ideas. And they pull those together to make the best decision that they can make, but that's going to be different because every level of the building is different. Every level of the skyscraper is different. Now, that's a skyscraper. That's a confined space built to house a certain amount of people. Barack Obama is talking about an entire society here. And society is even more complex than the skyscraper. And Barack Obama wants us to use a governing principle that doesn't even work for a skyscraper, for a business, for society. It's a conceptual absurdity because decisions are ultimately individual. And while we may come to a common agreement, that's not necessarily coming from a collective mind. Collective agreement asserts the collective to be the first premise in the equation of agreement, but it's not the first premise. Any agreement requires an individual mind to rationalize it and to see if it fits the light of truth, and if it doesn't, it's discarded, or at least it should be discarded. And yet Barack Obama wants to use one of the first principles of his governing mechanism of the internet to be a conceptual absurdity because he hasn't checked his premises. How absurd is that? Of course, we should also ask ourselves the question, how in the world can we respect free speech while also strengthening the prospects of a, as Barack Obama says it, healthy, inclusive democracy? It's damn near impossible because an inclusive democracy, once again, it requires us to affirm the idea of democracy, which puts political power in the hands of the majority, which necessarily eschews the rights of the individual and is more concerned about what the collective thinks. So again, there's no way, and Barack Obama said in his very speech that he is a free speech or close to a free speech absolutist, and then he conflates free speech with the First Amendment, which shows the insularity of his mind. Barack Obama thinks in terms of force and coercion. He thinks in terms of governmental force and statutes. He doesn't think in terms of human creativity and brilliance, which is why he makes these conceptual errors. So not only are the first principles of Barack Obama's goals to moderate content on the internet corrupt, as they suffer from conceptual errors, and they also suffer from lack of definition, if we take them at face value, they also suffer from non sequiturs. So Barack Obama says, after he laid out his foundations, that tech platforms need to accept, I'm paraphrasing, that they have a role in how we in society understand information, and with that power comes accountability. In democracies like ours, again, assuming and not even defining and putting the collective before the individual, in democracies like ours, the need for some democratic oversight. So Barack Obama's argument here is that since tech companies have some role in how some people get information, and then this is not all people, there are parts of society that are filled with Luddites that don't even use technology, that use other old-fashioned ways, but since tech companies have some role in how some people get information, they therefore must be accountable to the collective. They must be accountable to democratic oversight, and what he means is they must be accountable to regulation. This is a non sequitur. Just because I have something does not mean that I owe something to you. If I have $1 million, if I have not entered into a compact with you, or I have not previously to me owing that $1 million, or while I owned it, I have no obligation to you to pay you that $1 million. If I did, anyone could just walk up to me and say, hey, that $1 million, that's mine, I'm taking it. And there'd be no stable concept of ownership. It would all fade away to chaos. And yet Barack Obama uses the same line of argumentation to try to justify the regulation of social media to fit his goals. And what are his goals? His goals are to increase inclusion in a healthy democracy. His goals are to, in his words, it's to regulate hate speech to protect marginalized communities who may be on social media without actually, again, A, defining hate speech, B, reconciling the relationship between hate speech and free speech, which certainly hate speech is free speech, and number 3, actually defining the impact that certain kinds of speech has on communities without actually reconciling the divide within the communities themselves. Again, Barack Obama is talking in abstractions during this whole speech. And if you want to see more, I will link the transcript and the video for the speech down below. I can't show it all to you in this video because I'm trying to get out of here. But I'm trying to tell you guys something. It is never a morally just conclusion to say just because a certain group of people have a lot of influence, they owe us something. No one owes you anything, but you owe yourself to fearlessly pursue the truth no matter what. And you shouldn't be trusting regulators and government busybodies to do it for you. Because the moment you do that is the moment you outsource your epistemic power, your ability to grapple with knowledge, and the moment you do that is the moment you fall into territory where you could end up being morally culpable for atrocious things, where you could end up speaking in such broad and idiotic abstractions like Barack Obama does. Again, I don't have time to go over everything he's done. I might do a reaction to the speech in general, but here's what you need to know. Barack Obama essentially tried to justify the complete and utter not regulation, subordination of certain kinds of speech on the basis of democracy, protecting people, and some odd idea of obligation that doesn't conform with what obligation actually is. In essence, his speech was full of rhetorical platitudes, non sequiturs, conceptual confusions, which do nothing more than perpetuate falsehood, which ironically he said we have to embrace truth instead of falsehood, but yet he uses the very same tools of falsehood to further his premises, to further his conclusions. And that, my friends, is primarily why I say I do not trust Barack Obama. I do not trust anyone who talks like this to have any power or any control over the communication highways of our digital age. I don't trust them. I only trust people who are fearless advocates of not the First Amendment, of free speech in principle. Because the First Amendment is a statute, it's a law. Free speech in principle, which transcends law, which transcends the just, J-U-S, and goes deep into our very nature as human beings. That's who I trust. And Barack Obama is not amongst them. And he should not be amongst them in your calculation either. Think on it. My guys, I love you guys so much. My guys and my girls love you guys so much. If you love me, please support me on Patreon. It's going to be patreon.com/officialcwatson, or my PayPal, officialcwatson@gmail.com, or my locals, which is going to be christianwatson.locals.com, or my Discord, which is in the comments down below. If you guys want to support me, please like, share, and subscribe. Get this message out here. I need it so much because this is a dynamite message. We will go deeper into this speech later at one later date. But until then, my friends, I love you all, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.